Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute, guys. I know that I really haven't been doing a whole lot of video making anymore. Been playing a lot of X-Plane 12 though, and I learned I learned the 737 Zebo pretty proficiently, and decided to move up to a bigger bird. And so I decided to choose the 747-200 by Felis. Fantastic aircraft. I love it. I love the old school gauges and the dials and stuff. The model itself is fantastic. Everything basically works. But I noticed when I got to learning it that there wasn't exactly a whole lot of cold and dark startup videos. Just straight cold and dark startup. There is a lot of videos of like full flights and stuff where they run through everything and it's multiple videos and stuff, and that's awesome. That's all well and good. But when I was learning, I wanted a straight up, this is how you start the aircraft. This is what you do to get it ready to go. This is the checklist, yada, yada, yada. So I went ahead and I downloaded a checklist off of the xplane.org website. I'll leave a link down in the description area where you can find that checklist. There's another checklist that gives a much more in-depth bit of information about like all the processes, even from taking off to how to set everything up to cruise to land, things like that. But this video is just going to be a straight cold and dark startup of the 747-200 by Felis. No bells and whistles, not a bunch of crap, just straight startup. I'm going to be using the checklist. I've got it printed out in my hand. I'm going to be running down it word for word, verbatim, and we're going to just go from there. And so hopefully this helps people out get started with it. Like I said, it's a fantastic aircraft. We're going to go to the outside view. I am going to speak up a little bit just because it's windy down here. I'm down at KMCI down in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's close to my hometown. So it's kind of one of the airports I use to practice at and stuff. It's just familiar to me. So we'll go to the outside view here, and there it is, the gorgeous 747-200. It's a big aircraft. I was used to the 737 by the Zebo, and when I got into this, I mean, it's like driving a two-story. So, but it's a fantastic aircraft. The model looks good. Like I said, it's a little windy down here, so I'm trying to speak up a bit so you guys can hear me. So we're going to get back into it. All right, so first things first, set up your camera views. I would highly suggest that you have your main camera view like I have here. My next one is the engineer's panel. This is how I have it set up. That way I can look around and zoom in and access everything I need. My next one is my overhead panel. Make sure you definitely have a good view for that, because a lot of times during takeoff, landing and stuff, you got to switch kind of between the areas to turn on, turn off all the various things that you're going to have to do during those phases of the flight. Remember, this aircraft was piloted by 3 people: a pilot, first officer, and a flight engineer. So you're doing the work of 3 people. It's not bad. It does get a little bit, but it's doable. My last camera view is down here at the middle pedestal. And so yeah, and from there I can also move up and see these areas here, because I'm going to do a couple of checks and tests in here, and it's just easier to get there than having a standard camera view. So, all right. So, got my checklist here, and the first thing it is you're going to set up your ground equipment and your cargo and fuel. So we come over here to the EFB, all right, the electronic flight bag, and we go to ground, set chocks, connect GPU. Now, normally, if you have power to the aircraft already via like the battery, then you're going to hear the little voice recordings and stuff say, cockpit to ground, set chocks, set GPU and stuff, and they'll reply back that they've done it. But right now, I have no power to the aircraft, so we're just going to do it this way. So that's all set up by now. We go back, set passenger cargo. There is a few ways you can do this. You can go to load calculator. You can mess with all of this stuff here. I'm not going to go into all this, but you can play with this, hit instant load, see your load sheet, things like that. You can also go into each of these main things and do it through here. You can call a tanker, and a little truck will drive up and he'll refuel it and stuff. Same thing with the passengers. Set it all up this way and whatnot. I use SimBrief, and I set my flights up with SimBrief, so I keep it quick and simple. I go to fast load, I take my payload off SimBrief, and I put it in here at the closest amount I can. Same thing with the fuel. I usually maybe give myself a little bit more fuel, just because there's a lot of stuff you got to do between starting the engines, taxiing, the checklist, and stuff like that. You don't have to, but if you want it to be immersive, that's how you do it. And you have your gross weight and things like that. And once you set it up here, which we'll do that here now, I'm going to put, let's go up to, say 80,000 pounds of fuel, okay? And we'll put in, I don't know, let's say 20,000 pounds of payload. That's both passengers and cargo, freight, whatever it is you're wanting to haul. And then I click down here and click right into Sim. You saw the aircraft move a little bit. That means the weight shifted and stuff, so it's loaded. So we go back there. All right, that is all done. Next. All right, so power up with GPU, which is what we're going to be doing. All right, so we're going to, like I said, straight down the checklist, and that way you guys can follow whenever you get the checklist as well. So first, gear lever, down. Check that. It's right over here. Gear lever, right there, down. All right, flaps retracted, position displayed. Flaps are retracted. I can even make sure on my flight stick here, or my yoke, and it says so right here. These are two flap displays. They will both read right here, so 0, 0, check. Transponder is on standby. Transponder is right down here. This little guy right here, and it is on standby. Weather radar is off right here. All right. Galley power. So galley power is right over here in the engineers area, and it's right up here. Galley power right here. These 4 switches here, make sure they are off. Hydraulic air pumps, all right, which are these guys right here, all off. Okay. Fuel jettison pumps, all right. Those are these right here. This little thing, open it up, everything. That's all your fuel jettison. Make sure that's off, otherwise you won't make it. Standby power, all right, right here. This little switch right in here. You got normal off, manual on. DC meter, APU, and main battery, check. All right, so what that is it's these little buttons right here. You can use these to check to make sure that you've got power to the various systems and stuff. So you're looking for, your main battery. So APU, nothing because we don't have the APU on right now. No battery. Oh, yeah, we do. Okay, so there's your battery volts, things like that. That's not 100% necessary, but it's there. All right, now the first switch we're actually going to mess with is the battery switch, which is right here. This is numero uno. So flip it, guard up. As you see, some of the lights come on and everything. All right, so now next one is external power 1 and 2, check it. So down here on these meters right here, if you have your ground power hooked on, if I click this on, as you notice, it comes up. It's showing that we do in fact have the GPU hooked up to the aircraft and it's reading power. So next step is turn on the GPU, get that running power to the aircraft. Otherwise your battery is going to run dead real quick. So you go up here, auxiliary power panel, and it's these switches right here. This one right here, and this one right here. So click close, click close. We are now running on GPU power. All right, next, standby power. It says on here, it says first, manual on. All right. And that's going to bring up these gauges here, and you're checking your fuel and engine gauges. So what you're looking for is if I turn that back off, it's going to put these little flags right here. All right, and so when I hit manual on, little flags go away. Most of them do. But then the next step is click it to normal. So it's on normal. You don't have to do that step of the manual on. It's just part of the checklist. Radio master bus essentials and number 2, which are these switches right here. All right, so 1 and number 2, essentials number 2. All right, the next is another power check for the APU, battery, ESSTR, and battery. So that's these guys right here. Again, you can check them. They're not necessary, but it does just show you the current voltage that each one is pulling. Equipment cooling and blower selector test. Now that's over here. Now, the way this checklist works, it actually has you check it twice. You don't have to check it this time. Sometimes I skip it and just check it. But, for all intents and purposes, we're just going to go ahead and do it. So, click test, and we click test. There you go. That is checked. Next, light controls and indicator lights. So, down here is your light control panel for the back area here. You can go ahead and indicator light test. Click on your lights, do the Christmas tree thing. Alright, lights are good. You can dial up your lights and everything. When we get full power to the aircraft here, you can mess with these lights and stuff, and it looks pretty good, actually. The next switch is over here underneath the... wrong button, sorry. Is on the overhead panel. Indicator light test right here. Click that on. All your lights kick on. Cool. Alright. So the next is alignment of your navigation systems. Now, I don't use the old school INS systems, which is this guy right here. That's how they used to do it. Me, as you can see, I use the X-Plane default FMC. I learned it with the Zibo, and that's kind of what I'm familiar with, so that's what I prefer to fly with. You can pick whichever one you want to do. There's plenty of videos out there on how to work all of that stuff. I'm just not learning it right now. But you got to align these things. Now on the FMS, it makes it to where you have to kind of do a fast align. At least that's my understanding. So I just go over here to my electronic flight bag, INS, quick align. Done. Alright, so that is good. Next step is you got to go up and hit your no smoking and passenger signs, which is right up here on your overhead panel. And it's these two switches right here. So no smoking and your passenger signs. Done. Alright, the next one is your INS test and INS position, insert coordinates. That again is if you're using the INS systems. I am not, I'm already aligned. So next, instrument preparation. Window heat and overheat test. Your window heat right down over here. You can turn your window heats on. I turn these on. You gotta do an overheat test, so these little buttons down here, this middle button, it turns on the lights, and that way when you bring it up, it shows that it's functioning. There you go. You can turn that off. This is another little test you can do. You don't have to, but it's there. Let's see. Probe heat test. You're just testing them. So up on the switch, that goes out. Up on the switch, that goes out. Done. Stall warning and your airspeed warning and stuff. So this is your stall warning switch. This little switch right here. So just hold it down for a second or so. Over rotation, same thing. And your Mach airspeed warning. Same thing. Test. Alright. Compass modes are slaved, which are these guys right here. On both sides. Make sure they're down on slaved. So that is good. Alternate flaps and leading edges are off. Right down over here. Alternate flaps, leading edges, they are middle switch off. Wheel well fire detection, which is right up here at the top. Hold it down. Fire test, check. Next, cockpit voice recorder, right here. When you hit this test button, you're looking for this the gauge to bounce 2 times. So we get 1, we get 2, tested, checked, good to go. Emergency lights armed. Emergency light switch right here, armed. Alternate gear extender off, right over here. These guys are off and guarded, so it's good to go. Anti-skid is on. Anti-skid switch right here, closed, guarded, you are on now. Body gear steering, on. Now this one here, you have to open and turn on, all right? That allows the main wheels and stuff, they turn a little bit to help you taxi around and stuff. Flight directors, all right, so we're gonna go up to our main view here. Your flight directors, if you're familiar with like the 737 and stuff, they're right over here. You can turn those on. Check. Alright, so they come on. Alright, VHF nav test. So set an ILS frequency up, down, right test. Okay, so you set an ILS frequency in here. That gives you this little symbol here. As you notice, if I see how it goes away if I don't have one in. Okay, I've got one in now. We do an up, down test. Okay, you can do it on both sides. It doesn't matter. Artificial horizon testing for the captain and first officer. So it's this little button right here on your artificial horizon test. Okay, you can do it again on the other side if you wish. Don't have to. I do sometimes depending on how I feel. Radio altimeter, which is this little guy right here. This is how you kind of set your minimums. You can dial it up and down and stuff, and set it. It's in hundreds of feet, so I think this is what 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, so each of these little marks is 200 feet. So between that is, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. But you just leave it down, hit test, hold it down, and then gives you a little warning. Instrument warning panel. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I usually either go to my overhead panel and look down, or I go to my center pedestal and look up. But I zoom in here because we got a couple of tests we got to do in here. So, instrument warning panel. You can hit this right here, and this is going to light up, so see that? Test, check, good. Maximum indication, reset, so we're going to go ahead and just click that. Altitude alert, which is right over here. Click that, dial this down or up until you get that sound right there. You can dial it up again, get the set there. That's tested, checked, we're good to go. Ground proximity, test.
Pull up, glide slope,
Pause test,
glide slope,
test,
pull up.
Rudder ratio test is here. You're clicking that, and you're looking for this little light right here to kick on. So click, click, click. There you go. That's tested. That's good. Automatic flight annunciator panel test. This guy right here. Push to test 1. Push to test 2. I even click this, test the little lights right here. Again, you can do it on the other side if you'd like. I won't do it right now. Configuration warning. So what that means is if your aircraft is not configured properly for takeoff, you're going to get a warning sound. So all you got to do is grab your throttle. There you go. Check, tested. Weather radar, set it to standby. So we go down to our little thing here. Now, I actually took out the function for my weather radar. The main reason is because the 747-200 by Felis, it eats FPS like it's a fat kid eating cake. Like, it is bad. I mean, not bad, but it takes a lot. If you don't have good FPS on your system, then this is going to be a rough one for you. So I'd advise that if you're going to get this plane, make sure you've got a system that can handle it, because it likes to eat FPS crazy. And from I was reading some stuff, and they were saying that the weather radars, which is these little guys right here, it causes a little bit of a more FPS drop. So I didn't really need it. I can use this little guy up here to test for my next red weather if I really want to, and stuff. So not a big deal. But that's what you would do. Set it on standby. Let's see, EPRL modes, and it runs through the various modes here, which is this little thing right here. So this is part of your auto throttle. Like I said, this is why I say have these views set up, because you're going to bounce around them quite a bit. So you have takeoff dry, continuous, climb, cruise, and go around settings. You also have EPR on the auto throttle mode here, Mach, and speed, all of which, that's stuff that you learn over time. I'm not going to go through it right now. But it does come into play when you're flying the aircraft. The VHF, NAF, INS, compass garter switches are closed. These guys right here are those. INS, compass, all that is guarded and closed, which is good. You'll notice I don't fly with the visible yoke in the aircraft, just because I feel like it, the least amount of things that this thing has to render, the more FPS I'm going to get. So I usually don't mess with it. I don't know if it actually helps or not, but I turn it off anyway because I don't need it. Plus I got to see all my stuff anyway. Alright, next on the checklist, flight plan INS. Alright, so this is when you would set up your flight plan, INS and stuff. I'm not going to go through all that. There's videos out there on how to do that and stuff, but that's when you'd set up your flight plan and get all that ready to go. So, you set up your standard instrument departure. So, you're going to go over here to your MCP, Mode Control Panel, which is right here. And you're going to set things up like your initial heading, which is this guy here. You have your heading, INS or FM or FMS and everything. This switch right here, if you turn it down to this, is how you're going to get this to take you where you need to go. You have heading, VOR lock for when you're coming into land, and ILS, and I believe that's the auto land function. I haven't used auto land, but that's that there. You set your initial altitude right here. You have altitude hold, altitude select. These various things right here, different settings. Again, a lot of reading you'll have to do to kind of understand them. For turbulence, off, vertical select, IAS, and Mach and stuff. These here, excuse me, control your flight director bars right here and stuff. It tells you to set that up. You can dial it up and down and whatnot to set up see how I can set that up and stuff. That tells me where I need to be pitched for, takeoff based off of my performance calculations. So like if its initial pitch is 16 degrees, I can dial that up to 16 or wherever it needs to be, and it'll give me a general idea of where I should be pitching to during takeoff. We're actually going to turn the flight directors off because for whatever reason when I do the checklist, it doesn't want them on. Your QNH and stuff, which is your altimeter setting and whatnot. I'm not 100% sure what it is right now. Actually, I think it's probably pretty accurate because KMCI is about 1,000. So we're going to leave that there. That should be good to go. But obviously you do want to check. You can dial in your radios down here to get the ATIS from the airport. I tend to use little nav map a lot, especially with this plane, because you don't have a little screen in here that gives you an actual map of where the plane's going, like waypoint wise, like you have in like the 737. And it's helpful for me to visualize where I'm at. So I use little nav map in conjunction with this on my second monitor, and that's how I set my stuff up. That way I can see what I'm doing. You don't have to. It's just something I do. But I can also use it to find out information about various airports, like the altimeter settings and stuff, and it's just a little quicker for me. All right, moving on. So next is power up configuration. All right, we're going to do APU start. So first thing they want you to do is you got to have your nav and beacon lights on. It just says beacon light, but when you do the automatic checklist and stuff, it won't go any further if you don't have this on. So nav, beacon, and I'm pretty sure logo lights have to be on as well. It's weird, I know, but that's what they wanted. So with those lights being on, we can now go over to our engineers panel, and we will go up to here. All right, so you got a couple of tests we got to do. So you have your fire test A, B, and fault test. So we do fire test A. Oh, I'll pull that out. Fire test B, fault test A, fault test B, and then we do both A, B, fault test, both. All right, and we do the APU squib test, which is this guy right here. Just click it on. All right. So next, it says galley power bus 1, 2, 3, and 4 off. All right, so those are off. We'll make sure they are off. All right, APU starter switch to on. This is your starter switch. You have stop, on, and start. So we just click it to on. That's going to come on when these two lights go out, which is what you're waiting for. And there it goes. We can go ahead and turn on the APU starter switch, which just click it up, hold it for a second, and you're good. Once you see this little needle right here start to move, waiting for this needle to get up here to 100. All right, we are there. So now we turn our APU gens 1 and 2 field trip closed and checked. So which is these two top switches right here. So 1 and 2, and then we APU gen 1 and 2 closed and on, which is these two switches right here. So 1 and 2, done. We are now on APU power. I will then go down over here, go to this guy, go to ground, and
cockpit to ground, disconnect ground power.
So as I said, you'll hear the guy say it like that, and you're going to hear him call back here in a second when he's actually done.
Ground power disconnected.
There you go. All right, next. All right, so galley. So we turn the galley power on, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is these guys right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. The galley fan is on, so we turn the fan on. You have 3 sections there, on, auto, and off. Turn it to on. The galley chillers, upper deck, forward, and aft, right here. Upper deck, forward, and aft. So on. All right, bleed. All right, so it's these guys right here. These are your bleed valves and your pack valves and stuff. All right, so your isolation valves need to be off. They are currently in line. These are your isolation valves, and if you're unfamiliar with how schematics work, so with this line being in line with this, that means it's on. If the line is cut like that, that is off. Okay, so like these are off, and these are off. All right. So APU bleed air, now we turn that on. So the APU bleed air is up here. Right here, APU bleed air, open. We come back down here. All right, isolation valves turn to on. So on, you see the little needle rise, on, needle rise, good. Pack valves, 1, 2, and 3, select. All right, so this switch up here, packs 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. This right here is going to read what each one is reading at. Now it says here you turn on 1, 2, 3 and you wait until they're stabilized, turn on the next one. I have done it a few different ways where I just kick them all on and everything, and I haven't had any issues. So, but for all intents and purposes, we're just going to do this. So we've selected pack number 1. Pack number 1, as you can see, all the needles start functioning and stuff. Cool. Pack number 2, turn on. Again, all your needles start to move. And number 3, turn on. Needles start to move. Done deal. The recirculation fans, 1, 2, 3, and 4. which are these right here. I've seen various pieces of information that say only turn on 2, 3, and 4 just because it saves sound volume in the cockpit area, so we'll just 2, 3, and 4. Alright, next page. Alright, so power up configuration. We are coming down here to our pressure. So this right here is a big important area right here because this is what's going to change the pressure inside the cabin so you all don't die. So pressure mode select auto right here. Pressure cruise altitude set. You can set it so when you're setting it for your cruising altitude, you're looking at this side here. This side right here is for when you're coming to land for like your airport elevation. So you can, oops, sorry. So we'll go up to say 35,000 feet-ish. So pressure cruise altitude set. Rate on dot. Now that means right here. So this is dot right here. So rate on dot. All right, that's what we're wanting. Rate limit test. This button right here. Click, hold it down. Now you can do manual opening and closing of the valves with these switches here and this stuff right here. It's not really necessary to mess with all that stuff right now, and then unless in the event you need to rapidly like pressurize the aircraft because you messed up, which I did the other day. But that's all stuff you just trial by error, learn by doing. Right now this is just a startup video. Trim air switch. Oops, let's turn that. This also, sorry, this right here should be set to whatever your current stuff is, and if I remember it was like 3003. So let's go back over here. So 3003, right about in there, because that's 3000. This would be half, and then 1, and so on and so forth. So lost my place. All right, so you have barometric set. Trim air right here needs to come on. All right. And you see your stuff starts to move. Alright, engine pre-start check. So we move over here. So you're going to do a squib test, left and right bottles. Which is this right here. Left test, right test, check. Fire test A, B, both. Alright, which is down here. So fire test A, fire test B, fault test A, fault test B, A, B, both, fault test both. Fault equipment cooling. So like I said again, how in the beginning, it wants you to test it again. This is where I normally test it the first time, but again, test. Aft cargo heat test. This will switch right here. Test. Light comes on. Check. Lower cargo fire protection A and B. Down here, A and B for lower cargo fire protection. A, B. Lower cargo squib bottles 1 and 2, right over here. Bottles 1, bottle 2. Wing overheat systems 1 and 2. This right up here. Test 1, test 2, check. Brake temperature monitoring. All right, so right here is your brake temperature. Hit the test button. It goes up. Check left front, left rear, right rear. All that good stuff. Test, check. All right, next we come down here. So you have your landing gear test, check, check. Landing tilt, check, check, excuse me. And your landing doors, check and check. The EFDARS lamp test. I don't know what that stands for. I don't know what that does. But that's the test right there. Anti-skid primary and alternate test. Anti-skid right here, primary, alternate test, check. Portable water test, press to read, full. Alright, and that brings us right on down here to our fuel management area. So, you're looking for the totalizer, gross weight, and total fuel. You want this right here to match what your aircraft is. So if I go to performance calculations, after I've already set my stuff in my fast load, I hit load from sim, and that brings me 486,585. So if I look up here, 486.5. Cool. If that's not right, you can adjust this so this number here is as close as you can to that number there. So, but that's checked. Fuel temp, which don't really have to really mess with and stuff, but it's these switches right here. You can check through these. Test the gauges, which is this button right over here. press to test, hold it down. As you can see, I'm going to keep holding it down, but you see how your little gauges start to change? So that's what you're looking for there. Fuel heat 1, 2, 3, and 4, on and open. So these right here, you're going to flick them up. It's a temporary deal. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Green lights open. Reserve valves, check. Alright, so we check 1, up. Light comes on, light comes off. Check here. Light comes on, light comes off. You can also check these here too if you want. Again, check, 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 and check, check. Not necessary for the checklist, but it's there if you want to get really in-depth in this whole system. Now, part of this here, it wants you to turn these are your fuel pumps right here. You don't need to turn any of these on if there's no fuel in it. Like the center tank right here doesn't have any, so we don't mess with those. This right here is out because this is the one that the APU is currently using, so that will be out when you get to it. That's not a problem or a bug, that's just how that is. But it wants you to turn them on. First one's on, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then you would test them by turning off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, and make sure those test, and then turn them all on. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to do that test. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You can just flick them all on, but again, don't turn the ones on if there's no fuel in it. So now your fuel pumps are on. Next page. Alright, engine instruments, which is what we're checking, is over here. Making sure everything's looking good. Nothing's like your, this is your oil quantity. Make sure that's, up in here or not here. All this seems good. Everything looks good. It says standard instrument departure set, which we did. INS waypoints set and check, which if you did your INS, you could, check them again. Make sure your barometric pressure is set, which is, your stuff right here. Performance takeoff calculations. So, go back up front to the main area here. So, on your performance calculations, what you're looking at is when you take your information from the sim, which is, I said, from here. You don't have to keep hitting that. Sometimes I do. It just depends because you're going to be using fuel with the APU running right now. But what you're doing is this with this information here, you can also pull your information about what's going on outside. But this tells you everything from your V speeds, when your flap up speed, when you gotta raise your flaps up for each of these things, and to set these on the speed bugs, which is these little guys right here. Okay, these you can manipulate each one, but if you click that right there, it sets them all for you, just like that. It's perfect. So you have V1, V rotate speed. All right, this here is your V2 plus 10. I believe it's already set for plus 10, but that sets that automatically on your little speed dial, which is here, so 142. Then you got your flaps 10 speed, 5, 1, your flaps up speed, okay? It tells you what your stabilizer trim needs to be set at, 3.1 units, which we can't do right now because we don't have hydraulics to run the trim settings, but that will be done with this right here. Your initial pitch of 19 degrees. I don't have a whole lot of weight in this thing, so it wants you to pitch up pretty high, which is way up here. I don't even think the flight director bars, like I was showing you earlier, go up that high. And then your optimum climb speed is 290 knots. The required runway for your current weight configuration is this much, and things like that. So same thing will happen when you come into land. You'll go into landing, hit sim, click on this, it'll change your speed bugs and things like that. So we've done that. Performance calculations are good. Let's see, radio indicators and horizon indicators and stuff. Make sure your radios and radio and everything. Horizon indicators and stuff. That was the flight director stuff that I was telling you about. You said it, you don't have to. It says check your INS, make sure it's ready, and put it into nav mode. But when we did a fast align, it already did that, but it's talking about this up here. So when you normally set it up, you would go to align, and then after it's aligned, then you would switch them all to nav. But on a fast align, it just puts it to nav. You can do it however you please. Electric pump hydraulic system number 4. So we go back over here, and that's this switch right here. I'm going to zoom in. Electric pump hydraulic system number 4. Open it up, turn it on. At this point it says make sure all doors are closed, so you can make sure all doors are closed. I usually also remove the jetway at this point. Bleed air valves 1, 2, 3, and 4 go to on. Bleed air valves are right here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 on. Now it says turn off pack number 1, but leave 2 and 3 on, and then you're going to run a before start pilot's checklist. So we'll just do it by the list. I've done it where I turn them all off and it doesn't affect anything, but as I said, I'm following the list. So we go down here and we go to checklist, before start checklist, and we're going to run this checklist, and hopefully, if I remember to shut everything off and test everything, this should be perfect. So start.
Before start checklist, please. Gear lever and lights. Down and check. Brakes. Parked. Start levers. Off. Radios. On and check. Flight control hydraulic power. On. INS. Check and nav. Compasses. Slaved. Window heat. On. Seatbelts and no smoking. On. Emergency lights. Armed. Exterior lights. Check. Flight instruments. Check. Altimeters and clocks. 1017 set and cross check. Radio INS switches. Radio. Radar and transponder. Standby. Indicator lights. Check. Engine and wing anti-ice. Off. Stall warning. Check. Mach airspeed warning. Check. Auto brakes. Check and off. Body gear steering. Arm. Anti-skid. On. Autopilot and flight director. Check and off. Takeoff warning. Check. Auto flight enunciators. Check. GPWS. Check. Instrument warning. Check. Flight director computer selectors. Check. Instrument source selectors. Normal. Reserve brake valve. Closed. Spoilers. Down. Static selectors. Normal. Oxygen mask and regulator. Check and emergency off. Brake pressure. Check. Stabilizer trim. Check and on. Rudder and aileron trim. Check. Checklist completed.
Alright guys, so there's checklist number 1 completed. Perfect. Alright, so we're moving on. So now, next thing it says is we need to turn packs 2 and 3 off. Packs 2, packs 3, all packs are off now. Next, EPR, auto throttle mode, needs to be on EPR. So we go back to our center pedestal right down here, and it's talking about these right here. So click that, make sure it's turned on, selected, good deal. EPR selector is on go around. This one right here, all the way over to go around. All right, now it says to run the before start flight engineers checklist. So we can go back to the flight engineers panel, go down here, click next list, before start flight engineers panel, and start.
Battery on. APU panel. Check. Auxiliary power. Check. Engine oil quantity. Check. Fuel quantity. 7,975.8 pounds. Fuel panel. Check and set. Pressurization controls. Check and set. Bleed controls. Check and set. Hydraulic quantity. Check. EPR computer. Go around. Circuit breakers. Check. Indicator lights. Check. Electrical panel. Check and set. Air conditioning controls. Check and set. Fire control and wing overheat panels. Check and set. Equipment cooling. Check. Passenger oxygen. Check. Hydraulic panel. Check and set. Fuel jettison panel. Check. Crew oxygen. On. Oxygen mask and regulator. Check and emergency off. ADPs off. Checklist completed.
Alright, guys. Moving on. So, next, at this point, you're going to request your pushback. And so we're going to go ahead and do that. So I come up here, plugins. I use better pushback. So I'm going to pre-plan my pushback. I don't know what runway is best right now with the wind and stuff. I'll go ahead and get this all set up here. Zoom in there a little bit. So zoom in here. That way I can kind of see what I'm doing here. One thing I would suggest is, I know this in another video, is when you're backing this thing up, having it pushed back. Sorry, I'm going to speak up as I can. Bring it back a little bit so it allows all the wheels to kind of straighten out and line up. I wouldn't say do it like this because I mean it might. I have yet to try it, but you know, a few extra feet and everything never killed anybody. So go ahead and click that there.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
All right, so that's pre-planned and stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and call him for our pushback. Again, back up here to better pushback. We're going to start pushback.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
Alright, at this point now, we need to go down here. Click on our little flight bag, go to ground, and remove
Cockpit
chocks.
to ground. Remove the chocks.
And then we turn our ADP 1 on. Alright, which is right here, air-driven pump. I turn it to auto. It just says on.
Chocks removed.
So, not 100% sure if that means continuous or auto, but I've never had any issues turning it to auto. So, we're just going to turn it to auto. And galley powers 1, 2, 3, and 4 need to come off. So, at this point, we'll turn these off. Alright. On to the next page. Now we're going to be prepping for engine start. And we're going to get the 4 engines started up and everything. And then we will be almost ready to go. I'm not going to go through a full takeoff and everything, but I will...
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
But I will get you basically set up to start taxiing down to the runway. Everything. This is how we're going to do this video and how we're going to end this video. So, hopefully this has helped you. You know, like I said before, I've seen a lot of videos, but they're like 4 hours long and they're full flights and stuff, which is awesome. But me, I'm just one of those people, I'm like, I need a straight up, this is how you do it, this is the checklist. And as I said, I'm going to send a link in the description of the checklist that I used. You'll be able to follow it along step by step, just like I did, and it really helps you start to learn the systems of the aircraft and get this bird in the air. So,
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
which is that right here.
Parking brake released.
Starting pushback. And you may start engines.
Okay, so we're now ready for engine start. Alright, at this point, you're going to go back up to your overhead panel. Okay, and again, off the checklist. So the first thing is your starter valve. You gotta turn it on. Starter valve is right here. Open it up.
Ready to start
turn
the
it on,
engines.
and you get a little voice thing.
Ready for engine start.
Alright, so then it says transponder to transponder. So right here, turn it there. Don't know why, but that's what it says. Back up here. Alright, so I don't think the order of startup matters. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But I've seen it done. In here it says you go engines 4, 1, 3, and 2. I've done it that way. I've done it 1, 4, 2, 3. I've done it various different ways. But again, we're going off the checklist, so we're going to go engine 4. So you come over to engine 4 right here. You have system 1, system 2. So you're going to go to system 1 switch and down. Hold it down until you hear the little cue and it says valve open. So
Starting engine 4.
Starter valve open.
there you go. You can let it up. And now we're going to wait a minute. Because now, if you look back at the engineer's panel on engine number 4, the N2 is going up now. You're going to wait for him to tell you that it's 20% of N2.
20% and 2.
At this point, we're going to put fuel into engine 4. Right here is your fuel switch. Pull it out.
Fuel
up,
on.
Let go.
Light up.
Alright. Engine 4 is now starting. At this point, you can monitor all your stuff. Make sure, you know, all your temps don't go crazy through the roof, blow up, yada, yada, yada. Again, I don't have my failures on right now, so I don't think it would.
Starter off.
Okay. We're waiting for engine stabilization.
Engine stabilized.
All right. So engine 4 is good. We go back up here now, and then we do engine 1. So again, same process. Engine 1 down.
Starting engine 1.
Starter valve open.
Valve open. Come back here.
%, and 2.
All right. So again, go down here, pull out,
Fuel
up,
on.
let go.
Operation complete. Set
Lights
parking
out.
brake.
All right. Set the parking brake.
Parking brake set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Okay. Waiting for the engine start here. I'm gonna click these off. Reset those warning little lights.
Starter off.
Again, waiting for engine stabilization.
Engine stabilized.
All right. Now, okay, disconnect hand signals. He's going to do all that. All right. So engine 3, same
Starting
process.
engine 3.
Starter valve open.
Okay.
%, and 2.
All right. Engine 3.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next
Lights
time
out.
and have a safe flight.
Okay.
Starter off. Engine stabilized.
All right. And engine 2.
Starting engine 2.
Starter valve open. %, and 2.
Fuel on. Lights up.
You definitely want to make sure that these go all the way up. I'll show you here. When I first started messing with this, I was trying to set this down right into this little guy right here, and it wasn't registering. It was all the way up. And when you do your checks afterwards,
Starter off.
it won't check properly for you. So.
Engine stabilized.
All right, all 4 engines have been started. Next, after startup, so we close the starter valve. That is off. We go back over to the engineer's panel, and now we got to turn on the engine generators, which are these 4 right here, gens. All right, don't have to go in any order, but again, it on the checklist on the sheet I'm using, it has you go in the order you started the engines up. So we go 4, we go 1, we go 3, and 2. Done. Alright, now you go to the split system breaker, which is this switch right in here, and you need to close it, like that. APU bleed is off, so close. Galley power on, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. Packs on, and again it says wait till stabilization, but as I've said, I have done it this way and I have not had any issues. Aft cargo heat set to normal. Aft cargo heat right over here, just like we checked before, we turn up to normal. Let's come on. ADP 1, 2, 3, and 4 to auto. So these are your ADPs. Already on auto. 2, 3, and 4. Body gear steering and primary. This little switch right down here. You have primary and alternate. Switch up to primary. APU stop. Come up here. We have start, on, and stop. Down to stop. This will go out. This will eventually go out. And the electric pump hydraulic system number 4, this right here will trip off after you've done everything properly. It is now off. I just close and guard it. Alright, so that right there gets the engines all set and prepped for ready to go. We'll take a look outside and listen to it. So, next step is to get yourself ready for your taxi and everything. So you're going to set your flaps. So again, you go down to your performance calculations, and we are set for a flaps 10 takeoff. So I'm going to go ahead and move this down to flaps 10. So we are at 0, 1, 5, and 10. And as you can see,
Flaps
both
10.
these are going up. And they will go to flaps 10. Make sure they get there, which again, like I said, I don't have failures on, so they should. No big deal. Alright, now we're going to set our trim. So we come over here, and the trim was 3.1 units. So come on down over here. And so we're at 3 right now. This would be 3.5 and 4, so I give her a little bump up to 3.1. It's alright. Now the next thing is your green band selector. So this right here, you have to make sure that whatever trim setting you have is within the green band. Now this is not right now. We'll come on down here and take a look. As you can see, it's not. So what we do is this little switch right here, you click it forward and it adds the green band to this area here. Okay, if your trim was way up here, which I don't ever think it would be, you would go down with it. So that's good there. Next, we put the EPR auto throttle mode in EPR. Back down over here, this right here, make sure it is in EPR, which it is. And then your selector switch needs to be in takeoff dry. So back over to takeoff dry. Again, not sure why it has a switch between them and stuff, but it does. One of the key things to make sure you do at this point is make sure you turn your flight directors back on. That's not on the checklist, but since they want it all off and everything before you do your checklist, make sure you turn that back on. It's helpful. So with everything set and stuff, then it wants us to do a flight controls check. So right over here, this little guy right here is our flight control checks. So we get my feet up on the rotor pedals here. And we'll do a full right and neutral, full left, neutral. On the yoke, we'll do a full down and neutral. Do full up, neutral, do full left, neutral, full right, neutral. Alright, flight controls check. If you're wondering, for anyone who's wondering what I'm using for my setup and stuff, I'm using the Turtle Beach rudder pedals. I'm using the TCA Boeing yoke. And I've got 2 Logitech throttle quadrants that are mounted on a 3D bracket, or 3D printed bracket I got off of, I can't remember, I think by Etsy or something. But it mounts them together for me and stuff, and that's how I have my stuff set up, or the equipment I'm using. So now that we've done all that, now it wants us to run an after start checklist. So we come over here, go to our checklist, next list, after start, run that.
After start checklist.
Flight recorder.
On.
Start switches.
Off.
Beacon lights.
On.
Brake pressure.
Check.
Start levers.
Idle detent.
Engine anti-ice.
Off.
Electrical panel. Check. Pack valves. Open. Dual warning lights. Out. Hydraulic panel. Check. Flight recorder. On. After start checklist completed.
Alright. So next it says turn your probe heat on. Probe heat is up here. We tested it earlier, but now you're going to turn it on. Make sure both sets of lights extinguish. I should have closed that a while ago. That doesn't matter. So that's all well and good. Now we can go ahead and run a taxi checklist. So again, next list. Come in here, start.
Taxi checklist, please.
Flaps. Flaps 10.
Flaps 10.
Takeoff data. EPR and airspeed bugs.
Set and cross check.
Stabilizer trim.
Set in green band.
Probe heat.
On.
Flight controls.
Check.
Yaw dampers.
Check.
Seat belts and shoulder harness.
Check.
APU. Off. Fuel heat. Off. Totalizer and gross weight. Set. Flight engineer and pilot panels. Check. Aft cargo heat. Normal. Seat belts and shoulder harness. Check. Taxi checklist completed.
All right, guys. So at that point here, now you are basically ready for a taxi. You can come up here, you can turn on your runway takeoff lights. If it's dark, I'll usually turn on my landing lights just so I can see everything a little bit better. Make sure you come over here, you turn on your strobe light. That's on. With it being daylight out, I can turn the logo light off. All of this stuff isn't really necessary for the functioning of the aircraft. It's just part of all the processes. So at this point, you taxi. Once you get to your spot, you're going to go through your before takeoff checklist, which again is on the sheet. I'll run through all that without taxiing, so we'll just say that we've lined up where we're going to be. So you're going to go. So the next one is your engine ignition switches. You need to turn those to flight start. So we go back up here. It's these guys right here. So you're going to turn all of them up to flight start. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All 8 of them to flight start. Your transponder needs to be on TARA. Down here, so up to TARA, that is set. Body gear steering, you're going to disarm that. Again, it helps you when you're taxiing, but if you start to take off with that on, it gets squirrely. So we'll turn that off, disarm, and your pack valves will go to off. So remember, we go back to our flight engineer's panel. Our 3 pack valves, they go off. All right. And then you would run your before takeoff checklist. So we'll just go ahead and do that now.
Before takeoff checklist.
Icing considerations.
Check.
Cabin alert.
Check.
Transponder.
Check.
Ignition.
Flight start.
Body gear steering.
Disarm.
Pack valves. Closed. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Fuel boost pumps. On. Cross feed valves. Check. Before takeoff checklist completed.
All right. So then at that point, guys, you would go ahead and you take off. You do all that stuff there, which I said in most of those videos that they do full flights, they'll run through all those processes. I just wanted to give you guys a simple cold and dark startup video with the checklist provided. That way you guys can print it off, have it on a monitor, whatever you want to do, and follow along with it and get this aircraft started. That way you can get up in the air, start flying, start learning everything. Obviously on this checklist there's the after takeoff checklist, which I can't really do right now because I'm on the ground. You would run through all of that, but having gone through this bit of checklist that we have, you should be able to familiarize yourself with all of the different areas that it's going to require you to go back to and mess with. A couple of things, like a couple of examples, like when you after you take off, you got to turn your fuel heat on. That's going to be down here. So, or you turn it to auto. Sorry. So just like we flicked them up before, you'll just turn them down to auto. Okay. Again, pack valves, engine ignitions are off and stuff. So instead of flight start, turn them off. On descending, you'd and you go back into your bag here. You do your performance checklist, but for landing, you set your flaps, your gear, things like that and stuff. One thing I do want to tell you is your speed brakes. Get a button to toggle that. Because if not, you got to kind of move it. It's not like in the Zibo 737, if you're familiar with that aircraft, where you can just like click it into a little detent. It don't work that way. So I have it toggled onto or set up as a button on my throttle quadrant. If I hit it right now, it's going to do it, but then it's going to deploy the spoiler. So I'll show you that real quick. So that's the detent, and as you saw, it automatically deployed them just because we're on the ground. But it's that first little detent right there. When you're in the air and you click that, it'll stay right there, and it won't do that until you hit the ground. So yeah, but yeah, basically, guys, that's it. I said there's a little bit more to the checklist, like your auto brakes and stuff, which those are up here. There is no rejected takeoff setting for this aircraft. So when you go to take off, you'll just have it set to off. But obviously,
auto brake off.
Yeah, when you set it up to
auto brake off.
Yeah. When you're in the air and you go to set your auto brakes, it won't do that. It'll let you set them to however you want to do it. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm going to also provide another checklist on there. It basically is the same checklist as this one here, but it's got a lot of additional stuff in there on, like, after you take off, the steps you need to take to get it to climb properly, and when to use the various modes like vertical select, and altitude hold, altitude select. It explains, you know, it talks about how to use these and when to use them and stuff, because each of these little modes, it changes. Watch these little bugs right here. It changes how much thrust you're going to be allowed to have. So continuous, that brings it down a bit. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see, sorry. But yeah, so originally that bug was right in here. Now it's here. That's kind of a way to tell the autopilot, don't go farther than this on the power setting. And you're going to use those through the various phases of your flight and stuff. You know, climbing, cruising, go around, things like that. If you have a computer that's got that has a lot of really good FPS, like mine's decent, but you can keep the weather radar in, and actually it allows you to actually mess with all that stuff, your gain, your tilt, and everything. And that's all explained in this other checklist I'm going to have a link in the description for. But yeah, guys, outside of that, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Hopefully it helps you out and get you in a spot where you can start learning this aircraft. It is such a fun aircraft, and it is so incredibly well done. The guy Felis, it's a fantastic aircraft, and it's a lot of fun. So especially if you like the old vintage airliners and things like that, or you like the old steam gauges and whatnot, the analog gauges, which I do. So yeah, again, guys, thanks a lot for watching. And I said I'm not going to make any promises about additional videos, but I just wanted to get on here and throw this one on here for you guys, and I hope it helps. But if I make another one, I'll see you in the next one.